special guest. Okay, we've got Boyo from the Wildfire Guild with us. He has done some amazing work in the Illuvium Overworld, and we're going to talk to him all about it. For anyone that doesn't know, he has captured every single alluvial currently available in the Overworld Private Beta 2, which is no small feat. I believe he was the first to do it. I'm going to grab the tweet in just a moment. But first, Boyo, introduce yourself. How did you get involved with crypto? And like, how did you find Illuvium as well? Just like, let us know a bit about yourself.
Well, hey everyone. Well, thanks for having me. Uh, I'm sort of a newbie a little bit in the world of crypto. I haven't been in it for very long. Maybe just about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that I started looking into it. Didn't get a whole lot. I think the first game that got me it was Crazy Kings or the Trizos, like the little mobile game
Mhm.
that picked my attention. Then Gods Unchained followed. So I got into it, but I wasn't the big trading card game guy, so I sort of left it for a bit. And then I caught your Illuvium land sale 24-hour stream, and that's what got me really hooked up on Illuvium. Loved the people there, the people that showed up, got me interested in it. Got a few lands on the second or third day, following the stream about the SLV2 bargain. So that's where it started for me. So then I've been following Illuvium ever since, pretty much. Been a little bit into Gods Unchained also, but mainly Illuvium focused.
Yeah, and we might even talk a little bit about Gods Unchained later because it's what I would call the most successful Web3 game right now. It's been running for a long time, highly sustainable, a lot of secondary market volume. I don't know if it's wash trading. I don't think it is. It couldn't be, right? But yeah, it's very exciting. So for anyone who needs to be caught up, this is the tweet here that I am referencing, where Boyo took a screenshot of every single alluvial he has, which is everything. It's all of them, which is probably it have to be over 100, right? Which is no small feat. Let's put it that way. He's caught everything, and we're going to talk about that a lot today to make sure that anyone who also wants to capture every alluvial or wants to know kind of what it's like in the future when the overworld does come out for the open beta, we're going to talk about that so that you guys are fully aware of everything you need to do to become an Illuvium master. Let's put it that way. The next thing I'll ask you is, do you have a favorite alluvial?
Right now, I'd have to go with Slashin. That guy or Jotun, Hotun, however big guy. Probably yeah, those are my favorites right now.
Well, they're both frost, so I think you're in luck. You'll be building a lot of frost decks. Let's put it that way.
That's probably going to be the first deck I'll try and build. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So the other thing I'll ask you is, I don't really know about your gaming history, what sort of games you're into. Maybe you can fold that into this question. But is it safe to say you prefer the overworld over Arena and Zero? Or do you think you're going to be playing them equally? Do you like them all just as much as each other? Or kind of like, where do you lie in terms of your gaming preferences?
It's probably going to be more a bit about the overworld for me. I'll play all three of them, but probably a bigger focus on the overworld. I'm a bit more. Never had a good internet, so I never got into multiplayer much because I always like crypto buddies. So I got a bit more into sim racing. Was the big one, and then most of the story single player and getting the story completionist a bit. Maybe that goes with getting all the illusions.
Oh yeah, I feel you 100%. I think that might be one of the reasons I'm so into strategy games, generally speaking, is because your ping doesn't matter nearly as much, especially for turn-based. But even things like real-time strategy, it's not as bad when your Wi-Fi is not great. And living in Australia, I've definitely felt the effects of that one.
Yeah, I tried Fortnite with some buddies for a bit, but yeah, the lag was pretty bad on some nights. Let's say.
Yeah, it can be pretty rough. So whereabouts in the world do you hail from? Are you?
I'm in Canada.
I thought it was
Up north.
Canadian accent, but I didn't want to I didn't want to assume on that one. All right, so
Yeah,
this is a
pretty
little bit more.
much side.
Yeah.
Eastern. It's pretty. Can be pretty big. I'm in the Eastern
So,
Coast, the ECST time zone.
oh yeah. So this is a little bit more of a controversial question, but this is one I was really excited to ask you in particular because this is the sort of thing that you're going to know better than anyone else. And I don't want to I don't want to make you nervous about that, but you've got the most experience in the overworld outside of like everyone. Like even the team hasn't played the overworld as much as you, although they are building it obviously. But if you had to replace the overworld auto battles with something, what would it be? It's my biggest gripe at the moment where the auto battles feel a little bit out of place in the overworld in terms of a genre. If you had to replace them with anything, do you have any idea of what that might be?
Ooh, good question. Um, Not quite sure. Like straight up, I do remember playing fantasy 10. Those are probably the ones I spend the most time on. So maybe some kind of because that's one of the first Final Fantasy where you starting to battling also. I think in their world or big map. So maybe so yes, if you can get the Illuvials roaming around the overworld and somehow in some kind of turn battling system or something,
Mm.
it could be nice.
I'm very much a big fan of Monster Hunter, but that's very action. It's very easy to die and all the rest of it. But I like the idea of some sort of Final Fantasy-esque systems because it would still be turn-based, but it would be a lot more immersive. So you'd capture the best of both worlds, so that it's not too difficult, which is still important considering you have to pay to go into the overworld, things like that. I think that's it. I think that's a good take. I think we should definitely consider that, even as an intermediary. Okay,
Right, right.
so before Illuvium took over your life, what were your favorite typical games?
Um, just some shorter story kind of games lately. Ever since I've got kids. Before the kids, well, in university, it was racing sim. I was racing every Saturday night with a bunch of buddies, getting prep
Hmm.
all the week. And yeah, so I've been following endurance racing for a while, so that was the big thing for me.
So when you say racing sims, you mean like Forza and that sort of stuff, but with like a proper setup?
Kind of the big one too back in that was like racing a bit. I guess it'd be a bit more like iRacing kind of thing, but an older one that you do endurance, so you could do pit stops. And I think
Oh, okay.
like you had the R factor that also had you like you could be a team of people. I did a race or two where they were 10-hour races, and we were a team of 3 or 4 guys like swapping in every hour or so.
Yeah, yeah, I've never really played those sorts of games, but I know that they have a really big following.
Yeah,
I
once you're
like
into it, you with your good group of guys, it gets really fun. You get some real good battles. If you just play with people online, then it'd be like people crashing into each other most of the time.
mm,
But when you
okay.
get a good group of people into a league or some sort, then you can get some really good thing normally.
I like it. I like it. All right. So let's return to the task at hand. What is your favorite thing about the overworld? Like what makes you want to play it so much that you manage to capture all the alluvials? Because I know many people in the community feel like it's a bit repetitive, and I know that that's going to be fixed over time. But what are your thoughts?
I think for me is mostly the goal to go and capture all of them. Just get all of them in my Illuvidex if you want. Or and I like the exploring. I can't wait for the I like the story
Mm.
base. So can't wait to explore and find stuff and uncover some mysteries about what these Leviathan things are, or why they're a bunch of big skeletons everywhere. But to going back around, yeah, I'd like to catch all for sure. That completionist in me.
Yes. I've completed the Pokedex for every Pokemon game except except for Scarlet and Violet. So I definitely know that feeling. It's a little bit more draining nowadays because I have less time to do it, but I definitely know that feeling. So on the back of that, though, if you had to change or improve anything in the overworld, like let's say you had a feature and you could just remove it, what would you get rid of?
Rid of.
Or what would you
Uh,
fix? Is there one thing that you think would be easy to improve that you would definitely do right now?
Um, yes, some kind of sense of danger of other stuff. Like I know most of the people have said like it feels a bit empty sometimes.
Mm.
And yes, that'd be like to add something in the world to make it living, to make it, or maybe have some interactions or stuff that can happen or change along the way. Like, because I know if we just on it, I can get with it's got to be sort of empty at first.
Mm.
We won't have the built the from zero, right? Technically, if we're on the crashed planet, whatever there is, I can get the sense that's where I think the story and the lore can really help. But just randomly doing runs like this, yeah, if something could change or interact with you, random NPCs giving you tasks, maybe it's just, oh, I need this ore, oh, I need a shard for my daughter that needs a pet atlas or something. I don't know. Just other little goals that you can, like smaller goals to eventually reach the big one of catching everything or building something big.
Yeah, so it's about that smaller sense of accomplishment, because right now we really just have the one accomplishment, which is great to reach for, but the little steps along the way will make a big difference. I think it's a great
Yeah, yeah.
idea. So now we're going to get into the thick of you obtaining every single alluvial. So what did your typical play session actually look like? Did you always do a T3 run? Did you sometimes do a T1 and T2? Talk us through that and how it changed over the course of the past 2 months.
It did change a bit throughout the journey, but to start off, I did a bit because I figured and a jetpack and boots. That was the first thing,
Mm.
and I built a bit of a better uh, so that I could go on to the higher stage regions with a few Dokas and Grokos.
Mm.
So I think I built greater Fire Doka and greater Water Doka, and the lesser Water and Fire Grokos to go with it. I think I built to go into a station, into the other higher state.
Mm.
But yeah, I did grind a little bit, and then I started with some mining, but just mining to mine, like for the few, it was quicker. But I always wanted to go for one fight or two at some point, like early on.
Yeah.
So I started basically with a stage one, I think, right after I got stage zeros, just to get some shards so that the next run I could catch stuff right away
Mm.
and get a few of the. And then I started doing a bit of a more mining run. So the first few days, I don't recall doing many stage three runs. On the days I had more time, I preferred or opted for stage two runs than the stage
Oh,
one
okay.
to
Yeah.
go with them. So I got more ores, little shards, and I always go my like the last bit of my energy. I usually just enter an encounter here and there to spice it up and try and catch something to get going. And once I had like just enough shards, then I started doing mostly a stage three, stage two, stage one runs. For most days, I do have kids, so I have to wait till they're in bed to go and do the runs. So the time I had, yeah, it was mostly more efficient. I'd usually start with the stage three, then the stage two, depending on what time it was.
Okay.
I could put in stage one also in there. But
Oh, right,
early
right.
on, like usually started with that stage three with like I really like to scan most of the things to win on. So I like
Mm.
to scan my encounters, scan the deposits also, because then if there's something in it, I'll go for it. So I started building up slowly my drone chips to mine, like the mining reduction cost, and I started with the additional alluvials to make sure I had a bigger team to counteract whatever, because they were pretty small and I didn't have any weapons yet. So I started with that, but I upgraded real quick to the scan reduction cost for the middle slot. And I got lucky when I upgraded to the supreme reduction and scan power. So that sort of helped out for I used that for and I was using I eventually built up mining reduction and counter reduction that sort of complemented each other. I'm pretty sure you could be more efficient than I was if you go like Viper explain to play with the pros on Discord, to go straight up for just the mining with the mining upgrades, and then just to capture run with the capture upgrades.
Yeah, yeah.
But I figured early on that what would be troublesome would be the lynxes and the T5s, because there's 240 lynxes or something like that you need to catch. If you catch all the stage ones to fuse, and the T5s, you'll only see a few. So that's when I really started doing the stage 3 run for and stage 1. And earlier I was leaning mostly towards the encounters and trying to see if I could find either tier 4 or T5 in my stage 3 run, go for these encounters. And then if I needed shards, like the stage 2 and the stage 1 runs were mostly mining runs for that day. To make sure I have more rocks to build my drone upgrades and get a few lower shards, let's say. But then I'd always still go for an encounter or two and then capture whatever was there that I was missing, like the tier 1s, lynxes especially. I'd focus on them when I was doing the lower stage 2 and stage 1 runs. Whenever there was a lynx, especially at stage 2, I'd go for that guy. Mostly save some captures.
Yeah,
it went further, because then doing these lower stage runs, I could easily catch the lower tier guys. I found that out quick, so I really like to scan all the encounters and go in the encounters that have the higher tier illuvials in them. So I tried to catch that one first, and then I'd use the other shards and try to catch whatever was left. So it slowly built up that way. Because I always figured that my stage 1 run, if I wanted, I could probably see a bunch of little atlas or monkeys or whatever.
And so then very much build over time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then about through, I was starting to have most of the tier 3s, tier 1s. So I really started to focus on just the lynxes in the lower stage and the T5 and T4s were the secondary, let's say. Because on some runs I could see 4 or 5 T5s, and some runs none at all. It was a bit random. And sometimes I got lucky in the stage 2 or stage 1 one where there was a Ramphie or something. So I definitely go for that guy. So I really like to scan everything and then decide which encounters I wanted to go and which rocks. If there was a resplendent chart, I'd go and mine that one for sure. And got a bunch of epics. So I'd always prioritize what I wanted for the higher tiers, because I figured if I it's going to be easier to eventually grind out a bunch of stage 2 runs, let's say, if I need to catch the left, right? So I always focus on the higher tiers, but that's what ended up being the last bit, right? The last few guys I had to catch were Foe and Adores. And the last 3 Adores took me a week and a half.
Jeez, that's so unlucky.
Yeah, that's about the structure. But towards the end, especially because I was missing mostly those T5s and just a bit of lynxes, I switched my drone upgrades to go for scan power mostly and capture power. So I had the double scan power in the middle slot, and then I had cap power, and I kept that random slot was either mining, encounter, or scan cost that I was going for.
So for anyone who isn't aware, scan power, what that actually helps you do is identify all the alluvials, because you have this problem where you can scan a wake, but you won't necessarily know all the alluvials. And there, you might know that there's 3 fire alluvials, but you won't know exactly what they are. So by upgrading the scanning power, you're able to better identify that and make better decisions overall, right?
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
awesome. Yeah.
Because on some runs where you couldn't see any T5s in there, especially on its stage 3, I'm like, there's got to be odds where there's one somewhere the one that you don't know, but you know it's either higher. Maybe it's a nature encounter. Like, well, instead of going for the lower tier guys, I'll chance these encounters and see if I can get lucky. And that's when
Yeah.
I started increasing the scan power as well, to reduce the amount of encounters that I didn't know exactly was in there.
Yeah, yeah, because that would be the hard part, is all the unknowns. You get in there and it's like 5 Archies, and it's like crap.
Exactly.
So you typically, after the first kind of steps of building up everything, you typically did a stage 1, 2, and 3 run in your adventure. But what I didn't quite get was, in the stage 3 run, did you ever go in and just do capturing? Did you usually go 50-50 with mining and capturing, or did you generally focus on mining, because you got to get those resplendents and those epics for the T5 alluvials, right?
Right. Well, about midway, I'd say up to then, I was mostly 50-50 in my stage 3 runs, because I always wanted to get that extra resplendent shards if I could. So I'd always scan pretty much. Hope I can see a resplendent in the lazurite or maybe some quartz deposit, let's say, if I'm lucky. So but I'd keep the mining for these rocks and a few epics, because those were pretty helpful too. And then I'd usually be able to go into 2 or 3 encounters and mine a rock or 2, let's say. That kind of for the stage 3. And then in the stage 2 runs, if I'd scan most of the rocks, I'd often find epic shards in some lazurites and whatnot, or albite deposits. So I started building up a good amount of epic shards, so that when I started to fill out most of the lower tiers, by increasing my switch, either using more scan reduction and scan power, and then I to the capture power upgrades, I could easily catch a T5 with my epic shards. So eventually, for the last month-ish, or like the last 2-3 weeks, I didn't really bother with much, because I had enough. Because I probably still have 40 epic shards, because I just got so many. Only one of these T5s I was not seeing. Like, I'm pretty sure in open beta, I probably try and catch more stuff. That even though I've doubled up, but for this goal was just to catch one of everything.
Yeah.
So I was really concentrating on finishing up the Illuvidex. So I just had so many epic shards at some point that I figured if I just increased the capture power, should be good. And yes, with the 70% capture power, I think there's only 2 of the T5 that I tried to catch that needed the skin right to catch. I don't think I got one escape. So that was pretty good.
I think you brought up an interesting point, though, is all these strategies are going to shift for when the open beta comes out. The big change will be that you have the secondary marketplace, so you might either buy the alluvials off other players that you want to fill out the rest of your deck, or you might want to buy the shards and go into the overworld and stuff like that. How might you change up your strategy? Are you still going to go hard with runs, or are you going to buy a lot of shards and go hard with capturing runs, or kind of what are you thinking?
I'm not sure yet. I got to think about that. I'm mostly in Gods Unchained and the other play. I've mostly been just a free-to-play player. So I'm thinking if my Illuvium Zero land can give me just enough fuel, I'll try and just go from that. I might try and keep some Missile V2 for when the game launch and do a few more runs. But I think it's going to be a similar pattern for now, because I love scanning everything and just going for the ones I want. But I'm not too fond of just randomly going into everything if I pay for the run. I'm pretty sure I'll like to scan and pick and choose my battles and the ores I want to to mine. Because the other thing that I was struggling with during some of the runs was my PC is pretty old now because I run on a NVIDIA GTX 970 card, so
Mm.
I'm basically below what they recommend, right? So everything's running low, and I'll get some random crash. So that makes some trouble sometimes, where I'd crash. So then by the time I restart, I might be outside that bubble. Or so
Oh,
it
really?
added some extra strategy to, okay, when I'm close to that 1000 threshold, I know the bubble's coming. So ideally for me, it was to keep some mining ores like closer to the obelisk to do instead. Because at first my plan was, okay, I have enough. I can do like 2 or 3 encounters for the last 3. But then I offered that it's trickier for my PC. Like when you enter and exit the battles, that's when
Yeah,
it
yeah.
struggles a bit more, and I'll get some like out of memory and crash. But when that crash occurred as the overload mechanic triggered, and just the time to lock back in sometimes would like ruin one encounter. Let's say I could get so I had changed my strategy around it. So that I'm not sure if it's gonna make it to the open beta or if it's gonna be an option or not. So yeah, that's gonna have an impact. Although I will try to upgrade my PC for the
Yes.
launch.
A 970 is a little bit under par, but I'm glad it's running at all. I think a lot of people are concerned their computers aren't going to be powerful enough, but they're doing a really good job with optimization. So
Oh
the
yeah,
other thing I
and it
wanted to
made a big
ask,
difference this time for Crimson Waste. Like, oh, my PC see it a lot, and I see for me, for some reason, Abyssal Basin's been pretty good. Brightland Step's been the worst. I don't
mm,
know if it's the horizontal drawing or whatnot, and there's something. It's when there's so many wakes clumped together, which is one of the nice features they added in. But sometimes I guess it's too much for my old video card.
yeah, they don't really have the fog thing that Minecraft does, or most games do, where you can only see a certain draw distance. They don't really do that in the game, which is quite interesting. But it's surprised it runs so well after that. Like that's one of those settings that they'll probably add in later. So
Right.
how many hours did it actually take you each day to burn through all your energy? Like you said, you were scanning everything and going pretty deep. How long did it actually take you?
Um, Most runs I'd say would go between 30 and an hour and a half, maybe, depending on where they were positioned. Like Crimson Waste is the quickest one to go through.
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, we've had experience with PB1, so I knew where we had to go mostly. And one of the things that really helped also at some point was the upgrading the visor to the Supreme visor. That allowed me to find stuff in areas I didn't even know existed in Brightland Steps at some point. Because there was some encounter I couldn't, I don't know, it's over here somewhere, but then yeah, it was underneath the pile of rocks somewhere. You had to find an entrance. I probably would not have found it in the green visor,
Mm.
looking for something there. Like
It's
even
it's the
underneath
little
the
things.
Leviathan, right? There's like a cave you can explore there. The first time I saw something and I'm like, where is this underneath this? So that was pretty fun.
So
I'm sorry about that.
yeah, no, that's all good. The next thing we're going to go through is the Overworld Private Beta 2 launched on the 18th of May, which means as of recording this and as of that tweet, let me see when that released that tweet. July 19th. Okay. So quite literally 2 months later, you managed to catch them all. Okay. Now, considering about 30% of the alluvials still aren't in the game, do you feel it's going to be achievable for most people in the future to be able to go through and maybe catch everything in 2 or 3 months, and then wait for the next set to arrive? Or kind of like, do you think that's going to be a bit too easy for them to capture it? Or do you think achievable is good? Kind of what are your thoughts on all that?
I was thinking about that after catching them, and I saw something, and I was thinking I need to level them up to fuse them. So I
Mm,
could just fuse them. So I figured, and E5, you only saw 3 of them at stage 2. I've never seen a 3-1 wild yet. So I figured just the time to level them up to whatever that would be able to fuse. Like, I'm not sure I could catch them all in 2 months the next time around, because I don't see myself having more time than I was playing right now. Like maybe on some weekends or some days when the kids are or something, it's gonna be similar. I'm pretty sure like some streamers that play a lot more might have a chance, but just the leveling up, I think, will add some there. And then, like you're saying, there's so much more alluvials that you could find if it's a similar drop rate for the other T5s that we don't have, or for other T4s. I could see it taking maybe 6 months before we get playing a lot, if not a year, at my pace probably.
Yeah, for sure. And you'll have all the other elements of the economy where you can sell it to people or buy already leveled up alluvials and that sort of stuff. So I like that there's a need for a community effort to be able to have even a selection of people to be able to capture them all. Like it's going to be very much a team effort. You'll be able to do it alone, don't get me wrong, but some people don't want to wait 6 or 12 months, and that's perfectly fine. That's what the blockchain is for, right?
Oh yeah, I could really see trading some with buddies. Like, I'm pretty sure in the wildfire, get a few people and trade some together to help each other out. So I remember in one of the open betas, in the previous one, like we were all rushing around to be who could be the first one to get a Scoriox. But then
Yeah.
I was mostly seeing Scarabok and laughing mostly ferns all the time. So like, okay, well, that's all good, but like, okay, once they're all NFTs and we could trade them, we could probably help each other out to finish our collection or fusing and what be a very big part. I can see that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the trading is going to be a lot of fun. So, what region was your favorite? Now, both aesthetically and just kind of like the feel and the music and everything. And what was your favorite in terms of being able to capture lots of alluvials? Do you have a preference there?
For the look and feel, I'd have to go with Brightland Steps. So go in. Reminds me of some Final Fantasy time chill. Like once you got into prairies, nice little music. It's chill. It's fun. Because the Abyssal Basement was more gloomy, dark. I'm not more of a horror film or stuff, so I like the nice, bright, feel good type of thing. So I really like Brightland Steps. But like I said earlier, it was the toughest to run on my machine. So at some points, it was annoying me also. Like I go for big runs, I don't have much time, but then it crashes and crashes. But the look and feel, I think, was Brightland Steps so far. 'Cause I can't wait to see Illuvium Boreal. I think I'm gonna love that place with my penguins and polar bears. But to go and capture, like early on, when time was really restricted, I really liked Crimson Waste because it was the quickest one to do a run in. So I know I could get my runs in quicker if I went to Crimson Waste. But the more I went in it, the more I started to like Abyssal Basin. Especially once I got the better upgrades for the gear too, because with all the acid, it's a bit rough. But then once I got the best jetpack and boots, I started. I didn't know about the double jetpack move in the play with the pros on Discord, but I was using more of a mechanic of like a quick jump and jet, and I would glide, jump, glide, jump most distance. So then abyssal basins to become more manageable, I'd say, than at first when you have to jump to all the lily pads and be careful, not die and respawn. And I really started to enjoy the region a bit more. Was longer to explore, but what I found there and also to catch the alluvials, especially at the end, this in Brightland Steps, because it was easier to go through and make sure of all the encounters. Because it's mostly flat level, except for the mountains at the end. But even then, there's not. I haven't seen like a double or triple level within that mountain that you could see different encounters. Whereas in Brightland Steps, like the heat map would tell you to go there, but like if you forgot a level, like especially the northernmost part, there's a very lower line that I've skipped through the first few times. I didn't even go there until I got a better visor and I saw something like mist, if you want, or the so I know like it was easier to find because I go like mostly like scan the regions like from east to west or what. I've covered everything because especially that last bit when I was doing a stage 3 runs, I'm missing those 3 adores or a 4 or 2. I'm going through an entire stage 3 runs and I haven't seen one T5 Illuvio. I'm like, I gotta see one at some place because I always found between 20 and 23, 24 encounters in every run I made, basically. So in Brighton Steps, sometimes I had went mostly throughout everything, spent an hour and 15 minutes maybe going through, and then I only have 15 encounters seen or scan. Like something's up that area, so go more. So some of the runs maybe lasted almost 2 hours before I'm like, I gotta find the next one. There's more for sure. But it's still fun. Just hopefully it didn't crash. Those were the bad ones.
I like those comparisons. I think that's a really good take. Yeah, even myself, I was like, I don't have much time. I'm just going to do Crimson Waste. Everything's so bunched up in just a handful of areas. It's so easy to explore. I kind of wish it was a little bit more like that in the other 2 regions, because it just felt clean. Like it didn't feel that clean in PV1, but when they redid the algorithm, it just feels so good. So
Yep.
we got a few fun questions coming now. Okay, ready? So
Yep.
do you have any guesses as to the lore of Illuvium?
Oh boy, not really, not yet. But with the way we're seeing with the dimension stability, like seeks we've had, I'm not sure if like some kind of either multiverse type of thing or like time travel with that dimension gun. Could we go to a like once we've crashed on it? Is it strictly deserted? Like I'm not sure. Like those wakes are they like the spirits of the illuvials that were there before? Are they really there right now? Like are we like going through time or something to catch some essence of what would used to be there? I don't know.
I like
There
it.
might be some,
I like it.
kind of like our dinosaurs that went extinct. I figure something like that could have happened to the leviathans, but I don't know.
There's a time travel element. So you get there and it's empty, and you're like, well, we have this time travel technology. Let's go back in time and see what this used to be like. That'd be pretty wild. That'd be pretty wild. So, do you think you have the biggest advantage to unlock the second region before anyone else? So, for anyone who's not familiar, the only one region will be available when the game first launches. And as soon as one of the players finds some secret or obelisk or something we don't quite know, then the second region will unlock and so on and so forth for the first 3, and then eventually they will enable the 4th and 5th and so on. But and they're saying that it probably won't take that long. Like a person will probably find it within like a day, easy, and then 2 regions will be unlocked, and then it might take a little bit for the 3rd region. Do you think you're in the best position to uncover those secrets when the game comes out?
I don't know if I'll be in the best positions. Maybe, but I think will be like a community effort. I could see that happening. Like in either the Illuvium Discord or even in the Wildfire Discord, we could be 4 or 5 of us streaming at the same time, or people looking up and, oh, have you seen this? Look on the left. I saw something. Let it out, and like the community helping each other out. I could see that like making it quicker than just one person. And I've looked to it, but my goal was mostly to catch everything. So I've explored a bunch to try and find everything, but I haven't explored all the details yet. I was taking a bit of a break after catching all of that, like streaming a tier 0 every now and then to try to complete those. But yeah. It's summer over here, so yeah.
Yeah, gonna take a break. You've worked
Yeah,
hard on this game the
yeah, a
past
bit more campfires now.
the past 2 months. All right, so I think the team probably has the order set already, and I think I know the answer to this. But which region would you want to be the fourth one?
Um, Probably Alcyon C.
Hmm?
Yeah, because my preferred one was right now. I'm thinking is still Taiga, and I know it's coming up soon-ish. Because I think Shard Bluffs Shores might be the later ones.
Yeah, yeah.
But because of the little Atlas guy, I'm pretty sure Alcyon C's gotta come soon-ish. I think there might be something big with the water there, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Actually,
can't wait till we get those glaciers and
mm, yeah. I
see the.
think I think Tiger Barrel is going to look sick, especially the areas like the one we can see in this video right now behind us. That's from Tiger.
Oh yeah,
I like the idea of those small sections of life inside the broader Tiger Barrel. It's one of my favorite things of Crimson Waste is you have those small sections of like vibrant life, plant life, grass, everything, but the rest of it is a desert wasteland, right? You have these oases, and I really like that. So the next question is actually pretty saucy. So, how do you think the alluvial chasing system that Grant has teased on the showcase will work? He's talked about like they're going to change up the way wakes work, basically, and it's going to run away or something like that. How do you think that's going to work?
I'm not quite sure. I was wondering what he was talking about it. Once you get to a certain point, so I guess the way they're talking about it, I don't know if like you shoot it or spook it, then it starts to run away, then you have to catch it from what they were saying, right? But I don't know if it's going to be like on sort of track, even though it's
Mm,
random, or if it's just randomly going anywhere. And then will that impact some other encounters you could have faced? Like, because right now, right, even though the heat map, there could be one here, sometimes there's one nearby. So will you spook one while you're running after one, or what? I don't know. That's going to be very interesting. But I like that's like to one of the questions you were saying earlier, where what could we do to chase that thing? That's going to be some of the touching or, or hitting it that you can enter and face the alluvials.
yeah, and I think a lot.
Like so, where you'll see where the teases or maybe the affinity. I'm not sure if they mentioned that already, but I think when he was talking about, he was like the leaked that the alluvials could be ported into the overworld as a holographic type of wake. So I think that looks much cooler than the round wakes we're having now. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to be tricky because then if we have a Scoriox, let's say, so a snake, how is that? Will that one run away from me different than the Titanor? Then a fern start flying away, the little bugger or something, compared to. So yeah, interesting. Maybe the different mechanics for different alluvials, like running away from you, or maybe the Titanor would charge you, kind of like in their cinematic trailer. Like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big guy, maybe I don't know.
My concern is two sides to it. Is I like the idea of them running away in a way that kind of fits it. So a Scoriox would stay close to the ground, and a Fern might be a lot slower than a Ramfire, which would be very high up in the sky, right? I like that
Right.
idea, but the problem is that it would start to feel like they would need a set location because not
Mhm.
everywhere in Brightland Steppes can something travel along the ground. There's a lot of smaller platforms and things like that. So maybe
Right.
consistent pathing and less driven by the alluvial themselves would make it more interesting overall because you would never know what's going to happen. The more random, the better, really. I think even if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
4 or 5 set motions for each location of a wake, I'm not sure, but it's going to be an interesting one to see.
yeah, for sure. Because I'm sure there'll be some kind of parkouring you'll need to do in some of the regions. Like we saw the sliding in Tiger Boreal. So I'm
Hmm.
sure you're probably gonna need to snowboard-ish down that slope, chasing a penguin, or I don't know, sliding down or some other way. It could be fun.
Those penguins, they'll be everywhere. All right. So here's my bonus question, which is my last one. If you had to have any tournament in Wildfire, what sort of rule set do you think would work well? Like, if we're talking like Overworld a bit more specifically, what sort of rule set do you think would be cool?
Well, that's a tough one. That I was brainstorming about that with Ricky and Jacques at some point, especially after the first tournament that we had a little while ago in the on the PB1. Because there's always going to be this RNG right now. There's always going to be okay. So do you set up the stage 3? How do you validate? How do you? So it can be very tricky. I'm not quite sure. I haven't settled down on what type of rule set I think would be nice, but of course, it's got to be rewarding if you see or catch some of the bigger guys. That's always fun. Um, but that's luck based. So I'm not sure because I'd like it to be fair for everyone, but how can you make it fair when there's so much RNG? Like I said, some of my stage 3 runs, I saw 4, like up to 6 T5 alluvials sometimes, and then some other ones not at all. So I don't know how can you make that as fair as you can. Maybe some kind of weight points based on what you catch. I think it'd have to
Okay.
be based on what you catch, because we already have the leaderboard sort of grading your points. Let's say like the points you get are mostly based on what you're gonna mine.
Mm.
But I think for a competition like that, I'd go with something the way you catch and how you weight them, because that was something we had early on in that one. Like the more you can, like depending on the stage and what it was, you could have more points. But now we have a bit more variety of levels. I'm not sure I have a perfect system yet, but it can't all be on tier 5s because that's way too random. And then somebody that's very lucky will just rack it up just because he got that nice luck of a stage.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
like
not sure.
I like the idea of a random bingo card, maybe, where you get like a
Yeah.
randomly generated set of alluvials, and if you have like a general catching competition, but maybe you get 1 or 2 alluvials on your bingo card, or everyone does, and then you get bonus points if you manage to capture as many of them as you can. I think that could be really cool. You
Oh
do
yeah,
like a
that'd be
collective
fun.
thing, and then that means you can repeat it as well. Like next tournament you do is a different alluvial, and where that gets fun is because depending on what that collective like the catching competition basically becomes like the Atlas catching competitions. Everyone's going for Atlas.
Right.
It gets interesting because then everyone would be in the same region too, and then next time it would be a different region because it would maybe be an Archie or something. You never know. But I like the idea of that sort of stuff maybe playing a role.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be nice. I don't know if you found because you were talking about the different regions. I've noticed that especially for up to tiers 3, it seems in PB2 they've really weighted the drop rates like certain alluvials. Like you'll see way more air in Brightland Steps, right? More of the
Yeah.
fire earth in Crimson. But I haven't seen that for T5s. I don't know if we have data on that or not, but they just seem random to me. I haven't seen anything, or we just don't have enough data yet. But I started like I caught a Ramfy in all 3 regions. I caught boards in all 3 regions. It was just random. Sometimes I'd be like, okay, like the last few times I was looking for a door. So I'm like, all right, it's got to be Brightland or Abyssal, right? They both have nature. But I figured since it's second stage 4, so I figured I had more luck in Brightland. But I ended up finding all my last ones in Abyssal Basin.
To be fair, I didn't have that experience. Now I didn't play as much as you, so I definitely take what I saw as a grain of salt. But in Abyssal Basin, pretty much all the T5s I saw were Alfie, and I think I saw some dashes as well as the T4s. And then you go to Crimson Wastes. In my stage 2 run, I found a Squiz. which is fire, obviously, or fire air. So
Yeah.
in my experience was it was pretty consistent. I think I even found a fewer doors in like Brightland Steps or whatever. So from what I got, it was pretty consistent across from T1 all the way to T5. But you never know. It might just be the low chance, or it might just be what you remember because you were specifically looking for one alluvial after you caught the rest of them, and you forgot all the other encounters, maybe.
Could be. It seemed more random to me. Like even the squiz. Like I remember Ben saying on the Discord that squiz had the lower drop rates than the other team because of the of his affinity being shock and not like air or fire. And that I've observed. Like at some point I wasn't sure because I had seen as many squiz as adores and foes, but after that I found a bit more. But I did find the craziest of encounter in Abyssal Basin where there were 2 squizzes in there. I got that lucky once. But yeah, I don't know yet. I don't think I've done enough, but they seem more random to me. But I'm thinking because we only have the 3 runs, like will that skew the drop rates, like relating to the affinities, right?
Yeah.
Like we're saying we start and that's can we find any, or are we more restricted to the like more fire alluvials, let's say?
No, I think everyone's getting fire alluvials, man.
maybe. I don't know. Could be.
All right, so we better start wrapping up. It's been an awesome chat. We've learned so much about the overworld and what it's going to take to be an Illuvium master. Do you have anything to wrap us up with? Do you have any final remarks?
Well, no, it's been a great time. Can't wait for open beta to hit and the PvP because that's my next step. Trying to learn arena a bit more because that's where I'm lacking. Trying to get some more of that, but yeah, always down to help some people. If people have questions, they can always hit us up. I'm chilling most times in the Wildfire Discord, so if people have questions or need some help, I'm down to help anybody. We can even pop on the stream and answer some questions or like show different stuff, some paths or whatnot. That's pretty much it.
I need to learn Brightland Steps more, so maybe we can go through that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, it's been an awesome chat. We better wrap this one up. Thanks for joining me, Boyo. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll be having you on in the future as well. You know the overworld better than anyone else I know, and I can't wait till open beta comes out and we can all test it out.
Well, thanks for having me. Let's see you guys in the overworld.